I just finished Journey to the West Volume 2, and I thought I would turn the camera on and talk about it for a while and see if I have anything intelligent to say about this volume. Advanced warning, I may not have anything intelligent. So, if you're looking for an excuse to bail on this video, consider this your warning. I've done a couple videos on this series already, not counting my weekly reading vlogs in which I recount the parts of the book I've read every week. But I did a video explaining what this series was and why I was interested in reading it. I did a video summarizing Volume 1 and talking about what happened in Volume 1. And I was thinking I would continue to try to make videos after finishing every volume, rather than waiting until I finish the whole thing and giving my thoughts all at the end. I mean, who knows? I might not even finish it. I'm making such slow progress on it as it is. I'm going to try and finish it. But point being, I was thinking about the system I'm trying to stick with is to make a review after each volume and see if I have anything intelligent to say about that volume. Now, the problem with doing this with Volume 2 is just largely more of the same from Volume 1. Volume 1 actually had a lot of things to talk about because Volume 1 gave the backstory for all the major players, got all the pieces arranged on the board, and it was like most of the book before the actual journey actually got started with all the characters. Volume 2, though, continues with all the characters already established, the journey already established, and it's just more of the same. It's just a series of episodes on their journey. This book is episodic. So the characters encounter an obstacle, they overcome that obstacle, they continue on their journey, they encounter another danger or obstacle. Usually these obstacles take the form of a demon which wants to eat the monk. They defeat the demon and then they move on to the next mountain where they encounter another demon, etc. It's very episodic. The episodes are all pleasant enough to read on their own, but it is just, yeah, it's difficult to critique it intelligently without just saying, it's just more of the same from Volume 1. Added to that, I'm as I continue in this book, I'm really having a hard time keeping it all straight in my long-term memory. I don't. The episodes kind of all run together. I don't remember which episodes happened in Volume 1 and which happened in Volume 2. I'm starting to forget stuff. This could just be that I'm getting old. I've got a few gray hairs, maybe more than a few gray hairs now. But I think it's also just kind of the nature of this book, where there's just so much happens that it's just very difficult to recall it all. So I have open on my computer, which I'm looking at right now, a website, Journey to the West Weebly, which gives chapter summaries. And I might draw on this for talking about the chapters in the chapters in Volume 2. Volume 2 in this edition, and by the way, this edition is Foreign Languages Press, Beijing, using the text translated by W.J.F. Jenner, contains chapters 26 through 51. I know it would have been neater if each of the volumes contained 25 chapters exactly, but for whatever reason, this contains chapters 26 through 51. There's a total of 100 chapters total, and in my edition meaning the edition I'm reading, it's actually the library's edition, the library's books. But in the edition I'm reading, it's spread across 4 volumes. I've now finished off two of those volumes, so I have two more to go. But before I get into talking about this chapter by chapter, maybe I'll just try and give a bird's eye view of what's happening. I've already filmed a couple videos on this before, and I'll link to those videos down below, in which I talked about what this book was, why I'm reading it, what the cultural significance of it is, as I understand it to be. But just to recap briefly, this is a 16th century Chinese epic about a Chinese monk or Chinese priest who is journeying to the West to get scriptures from Buddha in India. While he is journeying west, he is accompanied by various supernatural beings, a kind of monkey god, a kind of pig god, a character named Friar Sand, who's some sort of supernatural demon of some sort, I forget what, and a dragon who is taken the form of a horse for the purposes of this journey. Of these, the monkey and the pig are the most prominent characters. The other two are side characters. The dragon horse especially is largely forgotten about in volume 2. I think he shows up in one episode. It's a very episodic story. So or a very episodic novel. They are journeying along. They'll encounter some sort of obstacle, usually a demon. They will fight the demon. Then they will win against the demon, and then they'll journey along to another mountain, and they'll encounter another demon again, and it will repeat. Every once in a while, they'll mix things up by having a different sort of obstacle. Instead of a demon, it might be a Taoist priest or something like that. But there's a lot of fighting demons in this book. It is, yeah. It's really impressive how long this book is. Especially considering the whole thing was written before computers and word processors and stuff like that. It's just epic. I mean, I'm only halfway through it now, and I'm already up to 1,173 pages, and that's with pretty small print and small margins here. So there's a lot of story in here. It's impressive, when you consider how much work it took to write out these manuscripts before typewriters and everything like that. It's really an impressive work handed down through the ages, and it's thankfully it's all come down into the present day more or less in one piece. It's also really imaginative and really a lot of fun to read. I was making it sound a little bit boring and episodic earlier, but within those basic frame episodes, the action goes all over. It goes up into the kingdom of heaven and the bureaucracy in the kingdom of heaven. It goes into the it's one of these books where there's hidden kingdoms everywhere. So there's kingdoms hidden underneath the waters in the river. There's a kingdom hidden in the waters of the well and up in the mountains. And there's aquatic creatures who fight these battles against each other in the river. And there's all this stuff going on in the kingdom of heaven, and it's a lot of fun to read. That being said, I do have to confess to feeling a little weary of this book, and I know that contradicts what I just said, but I do feel like Well, yeah. This I've always had a bad track record with finishing books. Like I love starting books. I love picking up a new book and being excited to get introduced to a new concept and characters and the author and stuff like that. But even with much shorter books, I've got a track record of halfway through beginning to lose interest, feel a little bit tired, and start to think about all the other books that I want to read or all the other things that I'm interested in. Now, I don't know how much sympathy that view is going to get on BookTube. A lot of people on BookTube I think are much more voracious readers than I am and don't have that problem. And yet, I suspect at least some of you will identify with this. Uh, even if a book is really good, long books tend to require long books. I don't know. Even if the book is really good, just kind of sticking with an author for that many pages requires some effort and some patience. And there's just a natural thing where your brain is wanting like a new book or a fresh book. And I think that's especially true with a book like this, which is episodic in nature. If you're reading like a long book like, I don't know, what's a good example? Like Lord of the Rings, where there's a continuing storyline that's pulling you through, then that's one thing, because you want to see the resolution of the story and you're seeing the plot work towards its natural conclusion. When it's a series of episodes, then that maybe increases the temptation to bail on the book. I don't know how much sympathy this view is going to get on BookTube, but I do know it's not just me, because I've read some other people's reviews of this book, and I think people say the same thing, like, wow, it's really good. There's so much interesting stuff that happens in it. But it's just so exhausting to get through it. It just goes on and on and on. I had one friend who, on his blog, was praising how wonderful this book says, and then says that he didn't bother finishing it. He got, I don't know how far he got, halfway through it, 1,000 pages into it, and then kind of said, okay, I've gotten the flavor. I know what this book is like. There's no point in just continuing on for more episodes, which are going to be more of the same. Is perhaps what he was thinking. I don't know, but for whatever reason, was really impressed by the book. Didn't bother finishing it. And for a book that's, I don't know, 2,500 pages long or something, it's going to lose some readers along the way. I was reading this book at work, and a coworker asked me about it, and I said, "Oh, it's a really great book. It just goes on and on and on." And he said, "Well, that doesn't sound like a really great book." And I said, "Yeah, I know it's." Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold over here. I've got a bit of a cough. I said to him, "Yeah, it's complicated. It's one of those things where, yes, I'm enjoying it, but it is really long." So yeah, that's where I'm at. So, anyways, I have open on my computer here a chapter summary, and I'll link to this in the description down below. This is a Weebly website. It's by a gentleman called Irving Wong, based in Sydney, Australia, who gives very nice summaries of the chapters on his website. And I don't know how far along I'll get on this, but I may just start with chapter 26 and talk my way through some of this, and see if it's at all valuable for anyone. As always, if feel free not to watch these. But yeah, chapter 26 is the first chapter in this edition, but it's actually wrapping up the episode from the previous editions. So the book is episodic, as I mentioned before. Each episode will cover about 2 or 3 chapters. So chapter 26 is the final episode. The final chapter in the episode that began in the previous volume. So I'll just skip over that. Start with chapter 7. Start fresh. So in Uring Wang's website, he calls the priest Tripitaka. I think that must be just a difference between translation. In this translation here, it's called the Tang priest. So the Tang priest is traveling through the mountains in chapter 27, and there's a demon. Uren Wang calls him the cadaver demon. She's got a different name in my version, but I don't remember what that is. She has heard that eating his flesh will grant her immortality, so she makes a plan to capture the priest and eat his flesh. So this speaking of this book being repetitive, this is something that gets repeated several times throughout this book. The priest is some sort of reincarnation of the golden cicada. Now, this is, if I have to complain about this book, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just my translation or something, this is something that's not very well explained in the beginning of this book. Something about the golden cicada was mentioned. It was not clear to me at the beginning what the significance of it is, but it appears that the golden cicada is one of Buddha's disciples who's purified his essence through many times being reincarnated. Well, I'm going to try and keep going. If the cough gets too bad, I'll just stop the video. But yeah, reincarnated several times and following the Buddhist path. And then it appears at one point the golden cicada didn't want to listen to Buddha. And so then as punishment was reincarnated as a human again, as the Tang priest. But despite that last reincarnation being a bit of a demotion, the golden cicada still has the pure flesh, apparently. So anyone who eats that flesh will get immortality. So all the demons want to eat the flesh, and this sets up the conflict for a number of these episodes. So she knows he's coming through, and she transforms himself into her young lady to catch the priest. The priest can't see through the disguises. Monkey sees a disguise. Monkey has the ability to see through the disguise. And he attacks her with his, in my version, it's a cudgel. In this website, it's called a staff. And the demon is able to escape out of the spirit of the demon is able to escape out of the body that she's inhabiting before Monkey strikes the killing blow. So Monkey appears to kill the young girl, but actually the spirit of the demon has escaped, so nobody's actually getting killed. But the priest is horrified. Monkey tries to convince him that it was really a demon, not a young girl. The same thing happens 2 more times with the demon disguising herself as an old woman, Monkey killing the old woman, old man, and then sorry, I'm just thinking, is this going to work? Maybe I'm going too much into detail here. Let me see if I can give quicker summaries here. So monkey ends up getting. Sorry, that's the danger of doing these videos unscripted and unedited. I've already talked about these chapters each week in my weekly reading vlogs, so maybe it's not maybe it's not a good use of time to just talk about them again. I've already recounted them. Let me see if I can find a more bird's eye way of doing this. So, chapter 27, the monkey gets banished. Chapter 28, actually, hold on a minute. So I just turned the video camera off to pause and reflect a little bit because I realized right in the middle of the review that my review was not working, that it would not be good for me to go through the chapter summary and recount each chapter. Number one, because that would be a really long-winded way of going through all 26 chapters in this book. And number two, because I've already done that. In my weekly reading vlogs, I talk about the sections of this book I read for that week, every week. And I've gone through and summarized the events chapter by chapter in those weekly reading vlogs. They're not organized by chapters. They're organized by the pages that I read that week, which will sometimes span over 2 chapters or something like that. But I have been giving a running summary of this book as I've been reading it. So no point in attempting to do that again. And yeah, I'm looking at the chapter summaries here and refreshing myself on what's happened, and yeah, it's a series of episodes. They're all quite interesting. I think I've basically said most of the things I have to say about this book. Maybe just a couple more observations to round things off. One observation, and again, these are things I've mentioned before in the weekly reading vlogs, is that there seems to be very little constraints on the story. So the monkey's powers seem to be growing as the story goes on. He's able to do more and more stuff that was not clearly established at the beginning of the story. So you're like, well, where's the limit to his powers? And if he can just do anything, where's the suspense going to be taken from the story? The other thing is that when the monkey encounters a demon that he can't beat, then he just goes to help from other places. So he gets Guanyin, the Bodhisattva, the female Buddha, to come in and help with any other demon he can't beat. I think he does that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times in this volume. So, yeah, there's in a way, there's very little constraints on what's happening, and things don't always. Yeah, in a story in which the characters have kind of infinite and undefined powers, it has the potential to make things boring, and yet there's just so much zany stuff that's happening, and the action just takes you to so many imaginative places that I'm willing to forgive it all. It's just, whenever there's some sort of new power introduced with the monkey that hasn't been established before, I'm like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Is this going to ruin the book, or is it still going to be fun to read? And so far, it's still been fun to read. I haven't gotten sick of it yet. I guess the other thing to mention is, yeah, the monkey and the pig take center stage here. Uh, Friar Sand is largely in the background, although he pops up occasionally to join in some of the fighting. The dragon, who has been turned into a horse for the purposes of this journey, you get the impression that the author has just kind of forgotten about him. Or I don't know, given how this story was written down by a certain author, but had been evolving as a folktale for a long time. Maybe this is just a legacy of how the story evolved. Maybe he was the dragon horse was a late addition to the story, an early addition to the story. I don't know, but there's really only one episode where the horse, who's a dragon taking the form of a horse, where he's that character is allowed to uh, transform his shape out of the horse and do battle with the demon. Uh, Other than that, for a lot of these episodes or a lot of these chapters, there's no indication that the author even remembers that the horse is really a dragon disguised as a horse. It just seems to be like the horse. Um, yeah, and I think that's really all I want to say about Volume 2. Everything else, I think I've said already in my previous videos when I talked about Volume 1. Yeah, sorry about this. On to Volume 3 next, and I'm going to try to make a video when I finish Volume 3. We'll see if that video is any less of a disaster than this one. Other than that, I'll just keep reporting back in the weekly reading vlogs on my progress.